So we're a boutique research and consulting firm. We're focused on data and analytics. I run the research group. Right now, we're very focused on the intersection of data management and artificial intelligence, generative AI in particular. I think there's a lot of fascinating things happening. Look at how Gen AI is starting to overlay onto other established market segments. And so that's why business intelligence is an interesting case study here. I might riff a little bit in terms of the implications. What I'd say overall to frame this is that when you think about business intelligence programs, you have data analysts who've been around for a long time. They're designed to, their mission is to answer business questions from business managers and deliver reliable, consistent dashboards and reports. Um, they also include data scientists who use BI tools to explore data and assist what they're doing. And because data scientists are also now rolling up their sleeves on generative AI, I think it's particularly instructive for them to start using the Gen AI tools, the Gen AI functions that are being built into BI tools. So what I'm focused on today is Gen AI functions built into BI tools. How's it going? What does the landscape look like? And what can we learn from it? I'll say first off that I haven't done, Paul talked about a buyer's guide. This isn't a buyer's guide. I don't have an evaluation of specific vendor tools. I think that we're in early days. A lot of BI tools, probably most, are building some of these LLM functions into their tools. And so what I have here is kind of a compendium of the most compelling use cases and what we can learn from it, understanding that it's early days and it's probably not a lot of companies who are in production with all these use cases. They're starting to kick the tires. Okay, so I showed a version of this slide a few weeks ago, and just to level set where we are, there are three stages of Gen AI adoption in our view. The first is well underway, which it started, the gun was fired a year ago, November 2022, with the release of ChatGPT version 3.5. Mainstream consumers and knowledge workers across the globe started using these platforms. It sparked an arms race with Google Bard, with others. And so a lot of workers are using ChatGPT. I subscribe to the $20 a month version to assist my work. And so that's an important thing to do. I think it helps to incrementally improve our productivity and think creatively about this stuff. The next phase, which is our focus here, is LM functions within LM tools. And so now it's becoming table stakes to have a large language model, or what we call small language models, because they're getting more domain specific, functions within commercial productivity platforms, Salesforce, Einstein, GitHub Copilot, Tableau AI. There are a lot of different examples here. And so what we're going to focus on is the LM functions that are part of BI tools. What I talked about a few weeks ago was more the third stage, which is also underway, which is organizations starting to strategically build language models into their own proprietary workflows to not just improve productivity, but gain competitive advantage. The two interesting trends here are that as you move through these adoption stages, and it's not necessarily sequential with organizations, but as you move through them, your two things are happening. One is the parameter counts that are required in order to pre-train or fine-tune this stuff go down, especially as you get into the fine-tuning that's required, or the retrieval augmented generation that's required to support phase two here. But the reliance on domain-specific data goes up. And so that's where there are important considerations about governance of the data that you're applying this stuff to. Our surveys on LinkedIn show that 40% of companies are moving to stage three, but we also see quite a few using stage two. All right, conversational business intelligence. We're calling this segment conversational BI. It uses Gen AI to guide and automate various business intelligence tasks through a chatbot that will exist alongside the GUI, the standard interface that organizations have, or that data BI teams have to manipulate and interact with their data. There are really three subsegments to a business intelligence program. There's data preparation, filtering, enriching, validating and cleaning data, formatting it and structuring it so that then you can be ready for analytics. Cataloging is also important. There are a lot of catalogs that are built into or used alongside BI tools. This is where you're collecting metadata. The more the better in a lot of ways, to assist the discovery, the evaluation of data, and governance. And then there's, of course, analytics, where you're starting to manipulate data sets, find correlations, find patterns, and so forth, and visualize your findings in reports and dashboards, or feed them into applications, workflows, alerts, and so forth. So I would say most BI tools now include conversational BI chatbots that complement the GUI. And it raises interesting questions, because it might well be that the chatbot sort of diminishes the graphical interface for the experience of a lot of these analysts. So as with all this report, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants. My colleague and boss Wayne Eckerson has this chart and a lot of experience in BI. So the history here is that there's been this ongoing trajectory to try to make business intelligence easier. And so we had desktop reporting was kind of the first incarnation, and then web-based business intelligence, visual analysis, starting to visualize outputs, visualize the way you interact with the data. And then the move towards search-based BI, I think, was an important one, because now you're starting to let this build come out here. Now you're starting to not just help power users, the experts, but also casual users, business people, start to search through data as part of their as part of the data democratization trend. You can also have BI functions embedded within other applications, and that's an important trend in both these ways. Conversational BI, that is the application of GenAI to business intelligence, extends both those trends in some pretty rich ways. So broadly speaking, the first phase here was kind of focused on helping those power users. And now we're starting to get more into casual users, although a lot of business people who are just going to pick up the phone and talk to the power user, who's the data analyst or the data scientist, to get what they need for an upcoming business meeting. I think that behavior will take a while to change. With that said, conversational BI is starting to move the needle some to empower business managers to start to interact with data in cool new ways. All right, so who are power users and who are casual users? Power users are particularly interesting for this audience, in my view, because these are data specialists, people like us, and people like you that deliver BI outputs, and also more meaningful AI ML outputs, and answer business questions. So these are the data analysts and data scientists. There are also folks that are getting involved in data preparation or governance, data engineers and data stewards, and then developers of applications that will consume BI outputs or AI ML outputs. Now, the casual users are data generalists that need those BI outputs. Traditionally, they don't want to deal with a BI tool. They don't want to deal with they want to roll up their sleeves themselves. They just want someone to provide them with insights. But they're using BI outputs to make business decisions. So these are business managers within the line of business. They'll include what we call data consumers, folks that are going to consume reports, outputs, request some special things, but generally they're consuming what they're fed. Then there are data explorers who are a little more data savvy, and they're going to say, hey, I would like this type of chart. I would like a different crosscut of the data. So they're business experts, domain experts like the first category, data consumers, but they're also smart enough to want to manipulate the data and look at it in different ways. And so what conversational BI chatbots are doing as part of BI tools is helping the power users get more productive. They can do stuff faster. And they're helping the casual users start to serve themselves. Our numbers, Wayne's done some research on this, are that the power users are usually about 10% of overall consumers of BI. And then the casual users, there are a lot more of them. They'll outnumber the power users 9 or 10 to 1. Within an organization, BI tool usage in general is about 20, 25%. And it's kind of been stuck there for a long time. This could start to change that, because again, it'll help the casual users start to roll up their sleeves more. So this is kind of the heart of the analysis that we've done, where speaking with a lot of vendors and speaking with users about what they're doing, there are a lot of things that power users can start to do to converse with data. The chatbot can help guide code development, so it can help them start to build scripts, build transformation scripts or queries. And oh, we have someone very excited. So they start to build the actual pipelines and applications that'll consume and interact with the data. There's also the ability to generate starter code and debug code. I think I did a parallel report a few months ago on data engineers, how they're doing similar things. They'll go to ChatGPT.
Never back down, never what?
Hello.
Never.
Was there a question?
No, you're being Zoom bombed.
Yeah, we're being photo via Zoom bombed.
It's all right. They're gone.
Oh, that's interesting.
Removed.
Okay. I haven't had a heckler before. This
is the third or fourth time, and I keep rushing to knock them off.
It's like a video game.
Whack-a-mole.
I feel special. I've never had
That's
that
fun.
before. It's my first Zoombot. Wow.
The perils, yeah, it actually is mine too. And I do webinars all the time. That's funny. The perils of our digital interrelated existence. Okay, so I lost my train of thought. So you can ask these, we all know this. You can ask these platforms, and you can ask these bots now, chatbots within a BI tool, help me build code to do X or Y. It'll come back to you and it'll give you something. And you can also say, hey, I found an error, debug this, or help me debug this. You can also get natural language descriptions of code. So essentially, a lot of the things that developers would do anyway, they can start to do in a BI context. And it can very much speed up a lot of the custom exploration and generation of business intelligence outputs and applications. You can also start to evaluate LM outputs. So you can ask the chatbot, help me compare these 2 or 3 things that I just had you create and the implications of that. You can also create predictive features. So you can have it create for you different, how do I put this? I think that there's going to be a huge coexistence between predictive machine learning and generative AI, because you will want, when you create a document, when you create business intelligence output, you'll want to categorize or rank the likelihood that it's accurate, the likelihood of the outcome. And you can do that in a number of ways. If you're creating summaries of customer conversations and you want to, or creating summaries of sales rep predictions about the upcoming quarter, you can summarize that. And then based on the rep's own ability to meet their own targets, you could assess the accuracy of that resulting summary. So there are a lot of different ways that I think predictive ML and generative AI are going to start to coexist. These BI tools start to enable some of that. Data Robot is starting to do some interesting things there. Data Robot's an auto ML company, but they are very interested in the experience of the user as well. Now they're casual users. So the casual users, as I said, outnumber the power users probably 9 or 10 to 1. They will, I think, start to get more involved with BI tools. They're going to start to ask it to recommend certain reports, to generate insights for them. Say, help me understand sales performance last quarter, both quarter over quarter and year over year. And the chatbot will come back to them and ask them to do this. They'll ask it to explain insights, explain predictive models, and also say, hey, set up a Slack message. So whenever sales per rep per week goes below a certain threshold, both individually and on average, send me a Slack message, send me an alert, and it'll do these. So this is just kind of the interesting set of compelling use cases right now. To varying degrees, these are all in play. There are plenty of vendors that are saying a lot more than they're doing, because they're realizing it's kind of hard to have something reliable built into their product. What they need to do is start to fine-tune it beforehand on a lot of their own generalized customer data. And I think in aggregate, this is going to start to shift some of the work from power users to casual.
That's great, Kevin. Who's got questions? Thank you, Kevin. Who's got questions for Kevin?
Kevin, this is JC Muir. I have a question for you. Can you hear me?
We can, JC.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, it's very timely because I'm actually working on a project in life sciences with, they call that augmented analytics, but basically bringing a platform that allows people to do sort of NLP type queries into the data layer. The question that I have is the platforms that we're looking at to bring to this client their ambition is to replace the Tableaus and the Power BIs of the world. I guess my question is, what is your take on the viability of the concept of creating a whole new product, a whole new company to try and dislodge, the Tableaus and the Power BIs versus these organizations building that same functionality within their feature set? Who do you think is going to win there? Just curious.
Yeah, my instinct is to say that the incumbents, Power BI, Tableau, and so forth, will retain their position and sort of absorb most of the generative AI opportunity. And I think the biggest reason would be that habits are harder to change than tools and features. And a lot of data analysts are accustomed to using those tools. If they can already, through functionality, start to get some of these capabilities, then it becomes hard to shift them off to something new. The risk reward of that becomes difficult. That's my first take on it. I'd be interested in hearing more about, exactly what folks are building based on the opportunity you're looking at.
Yeah, no, thank you. Maybe I'll follow up with you separately, Kevin.
Great.
Yeah,
We'll go to
if I
Manny.
could just speak up. This is Dennis Hunter. I used to work for a company that did BI, Click, and
Yeah,
they
so did I.
were yeah. Oh, okay, then you're right. You're very familiar with them. So, and also I studied on Power BI when it came out. My answer to the previous question, though, is that I teach a class also myself on AI and ChatGPT. And one of the things I tell my students is that as a product manager, what I look for is where is the need? What need am I going to sell into? And what I see in AI and ChatGPT, most AI is the input and the output. And if any of my students are online, they'll tell you this is what I say almost every meeting. So when I say the input and the output, and he was asking about the opportunities, there are lots of incumbent players, and it's hard to take the incumbent player down. But with that said, Burger King gets to eat even though there's McDonald's. So what I focus on is the input and the output of whatever technology it is. And the opportunity for us as human beings is the input being engineering prompts, right? So how you tell it what to do is what makes the output better. The other opportunity for us as human beings is the output, and that is editing and evaluating outputs. So we can have lots of great black box stuff that does the AI part, but being able to either scratch those 2 itches of how do I get this to give me the output that I want, or once I have an output, how do I tell that this is valid, that the AI didn't just go off in the woods and make this up.
Thank you, Dennis. I just want to get some other people in, Dennis. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Dennis. And we'll go to Manny, Mike, and Bob, and then we'll go to the next one. Go ahead, Manny. You have
Thanks,
questions?
Paul. Yeah, sure do. Kevin, great presentation. One of the things that I think of when I think about BI, analytics, things like that, is integration to like Excel and PowerPoint. I mean, there's always like a workbench where everybody works with this data. And now you see with Bing Chat and integration with Copilot, it's so tied together now. What's your thoughts on Microsoft and that whole space where it's really bringing all the products together with AI and all the other products in Office at the same time? It's getting pretty powerful, and it seems to be changing by the day.
It is, and it's pretty interesting to see. Microsoft's a great example because they have such a breadth of tools. As I mentioned before, we believe that the chat interface, the chatbot, might well push the traditional interfaces more into the background. And so if you have one master chatbot that you can coach, prod, prompt to orchestrate a few different tools, interact with with Excel and Power BI and so forth in the background, that becomes pretty interesting. And so I think that this will be another thing that plays to the power of incumbents.
A few more questions. Go ahead, Mike, and then we'll go to Bob, and then Lucinda.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, Kevin, I like this. This is a good presentation. One of the questions I had has to do with that persistent quality called hallucinations. So when I see, casual users recommending reports, generate insights, Yes, but that's kind of dangerous for them because they don't get it that, oh, well, it said cows fly, it must be true. So I'm curious how your organization tries to address that.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I think I've got a big asterisk coming. If not, I'll just say it now, which is that I think, as with all the other use cases I've seen so far for generative AI, you're not reducing the expertise required of the user. And so casual users, it's incumbent upon them to inspect, based on their business sense, the quality of the outputs, and then power users to inspect the quality of the outputs based on their data expertise. So there is a bit of a risk that you're empowering casual users to run with hallucinations. And that's where we're going to have to see what kind of runtime. My instinct is to say that the BI tool vendors are going to be aggressive with their marketing claims, but more conservative with what they actually ship to avoid this hallucination problem. But with that said, just in general with GenAI, I think that you can reduce those hallucination risks pretty well through fine tuning on domain specific data and then through retrieval augmented generation. And I see you wholeheartedly agree with me on that. There's still risks. There's no question.
Thank you, Mike. We'll go to Bob and Lucinda, then we'll go to OpenAI. Go ahead, Bob.
Kevin, can you hear me?
We can.
Yes. Hi, Bob.
Hi. Thanks for your comments so far. I'd like to take the 180-degree opposite view about the incumbents and kind of get your reaction. So there's a company called IBM and a lot of mini computer companies that basically own the world for many, many years. And, my kids don't even know who IBM is, put an example. So we got a sense of this several months ago by a product called Code Interpreter, now called ADA. But basically the notion is that with natural language, you're front-ending Python as a language and its libraries, that now, while it's limited to structured data today, you're now going to be able to take entire lake houses, data warehouses, data lakes, and so forth. Now so I think the incumbents, and I'll give you 3 quick examples. Excel adding Python to it isn't as strong as Python its own and all its library. Tableau and the others, Power BI adding AI, your shining wheel on the steam engine versus building a jet plane kind of analogy. And the NoSQL and SQL databases have added vector search types. So my hypothesis is that we got to build connectors between natural language and these data types, SQL, NoSQL, and so forth. And once we solve that problem, then using the power of programming languages, you're going to do n times more than any structured existing BI tool is. Now, you mentioned something important I'd also add to it's not so simple, and that's the necessity for clean data up front. So people underestimate the necessity for cleaning data. So what's your view on that being a trend line? Not immediate, but as a trend, taking down the incumbents that way?
You could well be right. There are a lot of this is one of those huge disruptions, and it's impossible to predict. I'd be a fool to say the incumbents with certainty will be fine. But I guess honestly, I don't know. I think that there could be a significant disruption, and that this could create entirely new interfaces and experiences for data scientists and for data analysts, and also for business managers, and disrupt the BI market altogether. The speed with which the BI vendors have absorbed so many GenAI functions makes me think that they're absorbing a lot of the upside. But the interesting thing is that we're in early days. We're just starting to learn how we interact with GenAI. We're just starting to learn how we interact with AI in general. So it'll take us in unknown directions.
Great. Well, 2 questions. Go ahead, Lucinda, then John, and then we'll go to Adam. Go ahead, Lucinda.
Okay, yeah. First of all, thanks very much for this presentation. I really appreciate the continuum that you were talking about for like how it gets incorporated. And I'm especially interested actually in the embedded part of it, because it's like if you look at something like Jasper AI, right? So Jasper AI is like a copywriter, right? And so my first inclination is to take Jasper AI, use those outputs and put them into my campaign manager because it's got a big overall workflow, kind of this power of incumbency, right? But then there's a whole question about like, well, should a company like Jasper AI just start to take on more and more of the campaign management type of capabilities? But that's going to take a lot to build out. So yeah, it's a big kind of trade-off. And I know we've just already been talking about this, but I was wondering if you had additional thoughts on the whole embedding process, because I do feel like that is the key. Once it's like it just works, or you don't even notice that it's there, kind of like that show 99% Invisible, like you can barely know it's there, but it just works and it makes your job way better. Like, how do you see that? How do you see that coming out now in the future for BI?
Yeah, it seems that there are two dynamics. One is the embedding, putting this stuff into larger workflows with it would also use predictive ML, that would also use standard BI, that would use standard sort of workflow orchestration. Yeah, I think that's definitely going to happen. It does seem that, at least for the foreseeable future, the human in the loop will need to be an important
Yeah,
element where you've
just
got
for
an
the review
expert.
part of it. Yeah.
Yeah, so that I think the expert needs to oversee and inspect outputs for the near term.
That's great.
Okay.
Thank you, Lucinda. John, did you have a quick question? John, you're mute. John, we can't hear you. And Adam, are you ready to go in about a minute or two?
Can you hear me?
We can now, John. Go ahead.
Sorry. The fancy microphone I don't know how to use. The one of the things I was wondering, Kevin, is how much are you getting, traditional like semi-structured or unstructured data coming in and changing the BI stuff? Because I think we were talking before about the quality of data. Yeah, but there's a trade-off between quality of data and access to new data, because a lot of times there can be signal in messy data that's very valuable. You know what I mean?
Very true. I think that most of the BI stuff that we see right now continues to focus on structured data, on tabular data. With that said, there is more look at semi-structured stuff like log files or basic images that are labeled to derive insights from that. There's the GenAI is triggering this whole wave of people looking much harder at all the text that's been sloshing around their organizations for a long time. That's exciting stuff. I don't think BI folks yet are getting too serious about that. That's more on the data science side. Hopefully that answers the question.
Interesting. Fascinating. Thank you.
Kevin, thank you so much. Really a great presentation, and want to hand it over to
Thank you.
to
And
Adam.
I'm sensitive to your data. That's okay. I'm going to
didn't-
send
I'm-
slides.
goodness.
You'll see a couple of examples here of
apologize.
use cases.
Okay.
And happy to handle any follow-up. But let me hand over back to you. I'll stop sharing here, Paul.
Okay, Kevin, my apologies. I thought that was your last slide, but you don't
No,
mind.
no, that's okay.
I want to put a pause here because I know that a lot of stuff's happening with OpenAI. People have heard about it. Adam, you've got some experience. Can you tell us what you've learned?
Yeah, thanks, Paul. I was asleep actually overnight when OpenAI had their OpenAI Dev Day today. I've been trying to catch up on the news. I'm personally more excited about what we're actually capable to do right now, but there's some incredible stuff coming. I would certainly encourage you all to have a closer look. But so first, in terms of a rundown, this is so many messy bars that Zoom is putting all over. Let me move that a little. So on the OpenAI website, they now have new models and developer products that were announced at Dev Day, and there's listings there. One big piece of news is that you can now go up to 128,000 tokens, which they say is basically like a 200 to 300 page book in a single input with ChatGPT, which is pretty big. It's going to allow a lot, but it'll also get very expensive. The more you use, the more you pay for, and I'm sure they're happy to let people consume more of what they're offering. There's also lots of things on this page you can get into opening up more access through the API, cheaper models. Something that's sort of buried in here, I did want to call out because I thought it was quite interesting and kind of buried. Let's see if I can find it here again. Copyright Shield is exciting for some people, especially on the corporate side, which is they're actually starting to offer some copyright safeguards in their systems. And yeah, goodness, I mean,
Adam, did we lose Adam? Can you guys
there's
hear
a
me?
lot in there, but one of the big things they hear me. How about now? Am I back?
Yes. You froze for like the last 20 seconds.
So the other big thing they announced, I'll assume you'll yell at me again if you can't hear me, is these GPTs, as they're calling, which is where you can actually create a custom version. And on their website here, they give lots of examples of what they might look like. And you can basically chat with a GPT and have it create a bot. You can upload documents that you want to fine tune and train it on. give it specific instruction sets, but they don't actually show much on the page about that. So this is actually leaked. It isn't exactly correct, but it'll help give you the concept of it. So there's going to be a builder where you can actually go in and you can specify the name of it, the description, upload some files for the knowledge base, and then also integrate it with some of the other tools. That's also pretty huge. I will paste this link into my chat. This is the Appman Academy YouTube videos. I just dropped one overnight called GPT-4 Goes Multimodal, and that's what I wanted to share a little bit about too. I am now able to, in one session, upload an image, chat about that image using the vision, generate new images, generate structured data using advanced data analysis, and browse the web all in one conversation, which is really what we've been waiting for in terms of being able to extend these capabilities and connect them all together. So I'll paste this link into the chat, but I just wanted to show you a quick example. I am aware of the time, Paul.
Were you going to paste the link for the one you'd shown previously also, or are they the same?
Which one?
I thought I saw something before I saw the images that you were referring to.
You mean before this?
True.
You mean this was just,
True.
yeah, this is a Twitter chat. I can put that in there too. I'll check them all in there while we're talking at the end.
Thank you.
So this is just an example. Imagine I was trying to think of a good use case. So let's say I was out on the internet and I found a web page, but for whatever reason, I couldn't search it directly. But I wanted to do a little more research on these top 12 trends. So what I did is I took a screenshot of it so that then I can use that with the vision module in ChatGPT. So I'm going to just copy that and then I'll jump over here. You'll see I'm in GPT-4 in the dropdown. I do have the Plus subscription. And on this list, you can see there's tons of bars in there. You can see there's the default, there's Bing, the data analysis plugins in DALL-E 3. You'll notice I'm just staying on default, but now I have access to all of them. So I will just paste that picture in right there. And the moment, this is actually, we were discussing a little bit earlier about unstructured and structured data. And that's one of the things I think Vision is really good with. So I can say, give me the list of the 12 top trends. And now we're going from an image, which was just some pictures on a screen, to actually getting an output that starts to structure this data for me. And it's great. You know, maybe then I say, give me an Excel spreadsheet with these trends and keywords for each for top search. So at this point, we've already ingested an image, which means we're using the vision tool. You'll see now it says working. And if we look, you can see it's actually spun up a Python environment, which is the advanced data analysis. And it's writing the code to actually define and create keywords with a dictionary and a data frame, saving it as an Excel format. And I'm not prompting very closely here, so I'm not even sure if the results it's going to give us are very valuable, but it's just to illustrate the capabilities. We could also, for example, tell it then to make a word cloud. I'm not sure why now it's going out and browsing. Maybe it didn't.
And Adam, I
So
believe
now
you can
it's actually
also
going
do
out to
that by
Martech and
voice,
searching the
too.
keywords. What's that?
I believe you can also do that by voice too. You don't even have to type it in.
I believe I only have access to voice through the iOS app right now. And this isn't working for me in the iOS app, only in the browser. So let's just jump off. Let's say create a logo, an image for my YouTube's thumbnail showcasing and hopefully it will now spin up DALL-E 3 right in that same chat and see it's maintaining all that context from the research I've done, pulling all those keywords together, and now it's going off and it's drawing a picture all in that conversation. So this starts to make some really interesting workflows possible. I used to have to go out and do web browsing, get information, copy and paste it into a new conversation, start a structured data chat to get my Excel report. And then at the end of all that, I'd have to figure out some way to summarize that into a whole new conversation so that I could then create the images I wanted that were related to it.
That's great. That's stunning.
So there you go. Yeah, it's the all-in-one.
Of course, it still hallucinates words. I've noticed that too.
Yeah.
There's a couple questions. Anna's got a question, Adam.
Yeah, go ahead.
Quick thing. You're not using any mode on the top. Nothing like Bing. It's just a regular ChatGPT,
That's
right?
correct. It's
okay.
Yeah, it's
Thank
just
you.
the default.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the default mode. Other questions?
So default now gives you access to all the others on the list.
Yeah.
The default with the paid, I believe, right? You have to default.
Yeah, I'm on paid myself.
Yes,
But yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, and so I have GPT-4 paid, and so by just doing general, you automatically are accessing the rest of them. You don't have to click on them independently.
And I haven't seen an official announcement about this. I know they said they're going to be connecting them all, and through the API, they're starting to let you call all of them, but it's working for me as of last night.
Yep. This is
So
Tim
Adam-
Andrews. It's working for me too.
But
And
Adam,
so
this
basically
afternoon.
it calls the one that is the most likely one to help with the thing that you're doing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Based on the
Yeah.
prompt,
Right.
based on your
Also,
prompt.
I am so glad I attended this meeting tonight.
Wow, powerful.
How did
Big
you enable
deal.
that,
they
Adam?
also there are a couple of other things. I think, Adam, you mentioned that they added this shield, they called it, which is basically what a number of other large companies like Microsoft and IBM have done, so that they will indemnify you against IP litigation for training data through the chat interface. So they've upped their game in that sense to match the others. They also noted that this is a much better and faster model, according to them, on their benchmark. So this is called GPT-4 Turbo. So it's also a new underlying model that they said is significantly faster.
Is that active now, or is that going to be? I thought it was like in a week.
Everything is active now, as of today. Yeah.
Yeah, I just
That's
read
what
that
they
too.
said. The only thing that's not active, I don't know, Adam, if you do, I don't have access to the GPTs. I tried to go there and it says you don't have this feature. And
Yeah,
so
no,
GPTs
it
are
tells me
agents,
it's not available
basically.
yet.
Yeah, so I think
Well,
that's not quite out yet.
They're
It's
rolling
supposed
out. So they're rolling out, and if you go to the playground, it might be there. Or it will be there eventually, because
Okay.
I got it later, late today.
Yeah, they're rolling it out. And so these are agents. This is a simple way to create agents. They're pretty impressive. And they are creating an app store, an agent store that they said will not be out for a while, probably a month or so, it sounded like. And the developers' tools were enhanced a good bit as well. So there's a thread on all the things they did to up their function access calling and other things. It was, I have to say, I'm pretty jaundiced, having been in this industry a long time. It was really impressive. It's only 45 minutes long.
Takes a lot to
and
impress
it's
you
worth
these days,
watching.
Tim.
Yes, it takes a very lot to
It's a lot to impress me, generally speaking. And this was, generally, I think OpenAI has been impressive because they're a pretty big company with hundreds of millions of consumers already. And yet they roll out features at a startup pace, a small startup pace. And the features they rolled out today were particularly impressive.
But the GPTs are basically a series of prompts, effectively. You could have like 30 prompts. I'm asking the question. You can have 30 prompts.
No. Well, that's one way to think about it. They're really agents. It's a way of, and you can talk to them back and forth, and they are basically internalizing that and making up. So yes, at the end of the day, everything, if you're using the chat interface, is run by a prompt, but there's a semi-structured interface to make the GPTs. So you're giving it some prompts like, what would you like for an icon, and what would you like it to do? And here's a file that has some data that you might need to implement this. So one way to think about it is robotic process automation on steroids. But it's quite a bit more than that. So it's not just stringing together a bunch of prompts. It's making the prompts for you and then hiding them from you effectively and just putting it all together behind the scenes.
Isn't the underlying technology just a very good probability machine? So the large language model, they're probability machines, and they're saying if you said this word, the probability of the next word is this next word is much more probable, say the next word. And so the output you get are probabilities of language. That's why, I'm
That's
concerned
correct.
about, right. Because that's why I push back when people are worried about getting sued, because what is coming out is not what you wrote. It doesn't just go and grab what's out there. It looks at something and says, what's the probability of the next word after this word that just came? I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, thank you. Thanks for raising your hand, Bob. Go ahead,
Could
Bob.
I just say on that point really quickly, there is absolute incontrovertible proof that you can obtain the training data verbatim out of the large language models. And I'll post a couple references for that in the chat.
Thank you. Go ahead,
Thank
Bob.
you for teaching me that.
Quick question for Adam. A lot of people are excited about the 128,000 context window token size context window. Is that just for developers? And was there any indication what's going to be available through the chat interface? I had heard a rumor of going from 8K to 32K, but haven't heard anything official. In other words, do you know what the plans are for the chat
They
interface?
said, this is Tim, they said it was available to all. They did not imply that. They said it was available in all the interfaces. So they now have the largest context window that I'm understanding, larger than Claude.
Yeah.
And they also, by the way, reduced the price by 75% through the API.
Alden, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, just I got the rollout, so but I don't know if this time I could do a screen share. But everybody's going to get the rollout very soon, I think, of the new interface, and it will be 128K
for the browser version.
Yeah,
great.
Thank you.
Tim, do you know, and we know we had Microsoft on here a week or a month or so ago, and they talked how about the Microsoft identification is you've used it through the browser, not the API. Do you know if the same distinction was being made?
I listened carefully, and of course they were ambiguous about that. So my guess is they're gonna make probably the same distinction. Nobody wants to indemnify the API calls.
I think that's.
But I don't know. The answer is I don't know, and they weren't specific about it on the announcement.
Great, wonderful meeting. Last call for an open mic. Any other?
Paul, just before we wrap up, I want to draw people's attention to the chat. I posted the links in there to that post on X as well as to the YouTube videos.
And thank you, Adam. And I just want to acknowledge, Adam, just yet another great presentation. Your practical use of this is just invaluable and saving us all. You are a human GPT, so you're saving us a lot of money.
Paul, one last thing. Could I just say one last thing?
Please go ahead, RJ.
Okay, so if you look in the chat, everybody, I posted I love this AI podcast. It's daily. It has a first section that has like a quick 5-minute overview, and then it has like a focused session for the rest of the podcast. But I love listening to this podcast. I showed 2 links there. One is for Podbean, but you can also get it on Apple and other places. And then they also post it on YouTube too, and that's useful when they show images related to AI. So I just recommend you all try that out because it's a very enjoyable daily podcast to listen to about AI news. You'll be up to date all the time if you listen to that.
Great way to end. Thank you, RJ. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, Kevin. And thank you everyone else for a great meeting. And we'll talk to you next week.